The Varelians had never known silence like this. Their ship, once alive with chatter and the steady hum of warp engines, now drifted aimlessly through the cold darkness of space, with only the faint flicker of distant stars to mark their lonely journey. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the endless black through the large viewport, hoping for even a single blip on their communication system, any sign that someone, somewhere, had received their calls for help. But the silence pressed in heavier every hour, deeper than the void outside. The warp drive failure had been sudden, brutal. One moment they were speeding home after a diplomatic mission, proud to be the ambassadors of peace among the stars, and the next, their engines had sputtered and died. Panic had spread quickly among the crew, but Ilara's steady voice had kept them focused on repairs, on sending distress signals, on praying for rescue. For days, the Varelians had waited, each second stretching longer, hope thinning with the shrinking food stores and the weakening power reserves. The galactic network that once connected them to hundreds of allies now felt distant and cold, as if the entire galaxy had turned its back on them. Their neighbors, once friends and partners, had grown quiet. The diplomatic calls, the offers of aid, all vanished. The Varelians heard rumors, fragments of messages, that fleets were too busy with their own crises, that the galaxy was fracturing into chaos, and so the Varelians floated, abandoned, forgotten. On the bridge, the crew exchanged worried glances. No one wanted to say it aloud, but the fear was clear. Maybe no one would come. Ilara clenched her fists, not just against the cold, but against despair. She paced the room, the weight of her responsibility growing heavier. A leader was supposed to inspire hope, but inside, her own hope was flickering like a weak star about to burn out. Still, she ordered repeated scans, deeper into the void, searching for any sign of life, any ship, any answer. Days turned into nights without distinction, the ship's interior lit by artificial light, the only sound the soft beeping of failing instruments. The crew tried to keep busy, checking systems, rationing supplies, maintaining order, but the atmosphere grew thick with anxiety. Even the youngest cadets whispered stories of being left to drift forever, tales told in hushed tones that no one wanted to believe but could not deny. Then came the strange events. First, the flickering lights in the lower decks, brief blackouts that no one could explain. The ship's AI struggled to keep systems online. Reports of strange glitches came in, as if the ship itself was weakening along with its people. Ilara ordered calm, but her own heart raced. Was the ship dying? Or was something else out there? The Varelians began to scan more carefully, extending their sensors beyond normal range, and that's when they found it. A faint signal, almost indistinguishable from the background noise of space, but undeniably artificial. The signal pulsed, quietly, like a heartbeat in the void, steady and persistent. Ilara's fingers trembled as she decoded it, and as the message grew clearer, hope sparked anew among the crew. It was a distress call, an old one, perhaps decades old, but alive nonetheless. Someone was out there, just like them, stranded, waiting. The Varelians redirected their ship towards the signal's origin, despite the risk of further damage or enemy encounters. The closer they got, the more the tension on board thickened. What if the signal was a trap? What if whoever sent it was hostile or desperate beyond reason? The ship's corridors filled with quiet whispers, as every creak and groan of the aging vessel set nerves on edge. Finally, they arrived at a small, uncharted system, a forgotten cluster of asteroids and dead moons. The signal came from a damaged ship, barely holding together, drifting near a dying star. Through the viewport, the crew saw the silhouette of the wreck, scarred and battered by time and cosmic debris. No answer came to their hails at first, only silence, heavy and foreboding. Then, faint life signs appeared on their scanners, weak but unmistakable. The Varelians prepared their rescue teams, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Ilara led the first boarding party through the airlock, stepping into the shadowed corridors of the stranger's ship. The air was thin, the systems failing, but the signs of life grew clearer. Flickering lights, faint sounds, signs that someone had fought to survive here too. And then they saw them, figures moving slowly, cautious but alive. Humans. The last species the Varelians expected. Stories told in galactic history painted humans as reckless, unpredictable, and isolated at the fringes of civilized space. No one had thought they would have the strength to travel this far, let alone survive alone. The humans looked tired, worn by hardship but unbroken. Their eyes held a fierce spark of determination, the same fire the Varelians had feared they had lost. Ilara felt a surge of something unexpected, relief, curiosity, and a new kind of hope. Perhaps in this vast and uncaring galaxy, salvation did not come from old allies or distant empires. Perhaps it came from those least expected, the ones who fought harder, survived longer, and refused to give up. As the two species began to communicate, sharing stories of loss and survival, the darkness outside seemed a little less endless, but the galaxy was still silent, watching and waiting, and the Varelians knew their true test was only beginning. The moment the Varelians made contact with the humans, a wave of uneasy tension rippled through both crews, the silence thick as they cautiously observed each other across the narrow corridor of the crippled ship, neither side sure whether to trust the other. The humans looked rough, clad in patched suits and worn gear, their faces marked by fatigue and hardship. But their eyes were sharp, filled with a stubborn spark of survival that caught Captain Ilara's attention more than she expected. Despite their isolation in the far reaches of space, these humans had kept their ship barely alive, surviving against all odds. Communication was slow at first, hindered by language differences and damaged equipment. But as translators hummed and words slowly formed, the Varelians learned that the humans called themselves Earthlings, descendants of a planet many, light years away from the familiar galactic centers. The humans explained how they had been drifting for years after a war had shattered their home system, their fleet scattered and forgotten by the galactic powers who once ignored them. Yet, here they were, still fighting to stay alive, still scanning the stars for help. Ilara's mind raced. The galaxy had written humans off as unpredictable and dangerous, but these people had shown nothing but kindness and resilience. Still, she couldn't ignore the questions swirling beneath the surface. Why had the humans come to this isolated system? Why had they responded when no one else did? Suspicion crept in as the Varelians scanned the human ship's systems, discovering technology that was unfamiliar, old and patched but surprisingly effective, with an unusual mix of crude and clever, designs that seemed almost improvised. The humans explained they had learned to adapt quickly, to use whatever was available and to rely on their own strength and creativity. But there was more. The humans admitted they had been tracking the Varelians' distress signals long before making contact, drawn not just by chance but by a deliberate decision to seek out allies in a galaxy fracturing into chaos. The Varelians listened, conflicted. They had felt abandoned, forgotten by everyone, yet here was a species that had not only found them, but chosen to help without hesitation. The humans' openness was disarming, but it also raised alarms. What were their true intentions? Were they scouts for a larger force or something more? As the crews began to share resources, repairs started in earnest, and slowly the human and Varelian crews mingled, exchanging stories of survival and loss. The humans spoke of their past battles, their struggles to hold together a broken fleet, and their belief in fighting not just for themselves, but for something bigger, a future where no one would be left behind. The Varelians, hardened by years of diplomacy and caution, found themselves inspired by the humans' blunt honesty and fierce loyalty to their own kind. Yet, outside the ship, the void seemed to grow darker, as if the silence that had once pressed on the Varelians was now watching, waiting. Sensors picked up faint signals, shadows on the edge of detection, strange readings that could mean anything from natural phenomena to approaching threats. The humans reacted with quiet alertness, their faces hardening as if memories of past dangers flickered in their eyes. Ilara ordered heightened vigilance, knowing that in this lawless region of space, danger could come without warning. Days passed, and the repairs continued, the two crews working side by side, each learning from the other. The humans taught the Varelians to think outside the strict rules of galactic protocol, showing how quick thinking and bold moves could turn even the worst situations around. The Varelians shared their advanced technologies and knowledge of galactic politics, offering insights that helped the humans plan their next moves. But despite the growing camaraderie, a sense of unease lingered. One night, during a routine patrol of the nearby system, a scout spotted a dark shape slipping through the asteroid belt. Not a ship the Varelians recognized. It moved with a silent menace, avoiding all attempts to communicate. The humans tensed immediately, weapons at the ready, and the Varelians scrambled to raise shields. The unknown vessel did not attack but seemed to be observing, a ghost in the dark. The message was clear. They were being watched. This silent watcher was a warning or a prelude to something worse. Alara and the human commander held tense discussions, weighing options. Should they try to flee, risking slow engines and unknown dangers, or stay and prepare for a fight they might not be ready for? The humans, experienced in guerrilla tactics and survival, insisted they could hold their ground if needed. Alara found herself relying more and more on their fierce spirit and unconventional thinking, even as the weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. As days slipped into nights, the tension on both ships mounted. Strange malfunctions began to occur, systems flickering and failing just when they were needed most. The humans suspected sabotage but could find no evidence. The Varelians wondered if the dark presence lurking at the system's edge was interfering, playing a deadly game of patience and power. In the cold silence between stars, trust was fragile, but the alliance between Varelians and humans grew, stronger with every challenge. The humans' willingness to face fear head-on gave the Varelians hope and a new sense of purpose. They were no longer alone. Yet the question remained, why had the galaxy truly abandoned them? And what darkness was gathering just beyond the edge of their fragile sanctuary? The unknown watcher remained, silent and unseen, a shadow that refused to fade. As the humans and Varelians prepared for the battles ahead, both knew one thing for certain. This unexpected contact was only the beginning, and survival in the silent void would demand everything they had and more. The Varelians were beginning to understand that the humans were not what the galaxy had expected, and every day spent together revealed more about the strange but effective way they lived and fought, a way that was far from the polished diplomacy and rigid order the Varelians had known all their lives. On the joint ship, as repairs progressed, the humans moved quickly and without ceremony, working in small teams with a noise and energy that felt almost chaotic to the Varelians, who were used to calm, measured precision. The humans made jokes, argued loudly, and sometimes broke into song during long shifts, but beneath this surface was a fierce determination and a refusal to accept defeat. Captain Alara watched as the humans fixed engines with makeshift tools, repurposed broken parts, and used every scrap of knowledge they had to keep the ship alive. Their methods were messy and unorthodox, but incredibly effective, and the Varelians could not help but admire the stubborn hope that burned inside them. The humans spoke of their history, telling stories of survival against impossible odds, wars that nearly destroyed their worlds, plagues that ravaged entire populations, and times when they had been hunted and forgotten by other galactic powers. They explained how they learned to trust no one but themselves, to fight with grit and cleverness rather than relying on alliances that could crumble at any moment. Alara found herself fascinated and unsettled. The humans' courage was real, but it was born from hardship and loss, a sharp contrast to the Varelians' calm confidence and careful diplomacy. One night, as the stars outside twinkled coldly, a human engineer named Jonas invited Alara to their mess hall, a cramped but lively space filled with laughter and stories. Jonas talked about how humans never gave up because they had no choice. They had been pushed to the edge so many times that surrender was not an option. His eyes shone with a wild light as he said, "We keep moving because stopping means death. We fight because living means fighting." Alara realized that humans saw the universe not as a place of order and rules, but as a battlefield where survival was earned every day. This mindset both terrified and inspired her. Meanwhile, tensions outside the ships grew. The dark presence that had haunted their system remained, occasionally probing their sensors and testing defenses. The humans insisted on training the Varelians in their style of combat, quick strikes, unexpected maneuvers, and using the environment to their advantage. The Varelians, who had relied on strong shields and coordinated fleet tactics, found themselves adapting to hit-and-run attacks and improvisation. During one exercise in the asteroid field, a sudden simulated ambush threw the Varelian crew into chaos, but the humans moved swiftly, organizing defenses and counterattacks with practiced ease. Alara saw how the humans' instinct and boldness could turn even dire situations around. This new way of thinking began to change the Varelians, teaching them to trust their instincts and take risks they never would have considered. But it was not without cost. Some Varelians struggled to accept the humans' unpredictability and loud confidence, viewing their behavior as reckless or disrespectful. There were clashes, heated debates over strategy, and moments when old prejudices threatened to break the fragile alliance. Alara worked tirelessly to mediate, reminding everyone that survival depended on unity and understanding. As the repairs neared completion, the humans revealed another secret. They had gathered intelligence on the hostile empire that had once ignored the Varelians' calls and was now expanding aggressively into the region. They spoke of ruthless commanders who used fear and overwhelming force to crush resistance, leaving destruction in their wake. The humans believed that if they did not act soon, the Varelians and others would be swallowed by this growing shadow. Alara knew this was more than a warning. It was a call to prepare for war. The humans proposed a bold plan. Instead of waiting to be attacked, they would launch small, targeted strikes to disrupt enemy supply lines and communication, weakening the Empire's grip. The Varelians hesitated. Their culture prized negotiation and avoiding open conflict when possible. But the humans insisted that in this new reality, waiting meant death. They showed maps, data, and examples of how their tactics had worked in past battles, convincing Alara and her officers that hope lay in action, not passivity. Night after night, the crews trained together, planning raids and defenses, blending human daring with Varelian precision. The ship hummed with renewed energy, a fragile beacon of resistance against the creeping darkness. Yet, beneath the surface, a deeper question gnawed at Alara's mind. Could these two very different species truly trust each other when the galaxy was watching and enemies lurked in the shadows? She knew that the humans' fierce independence might clash with Varelian caution, but also that their unexpected alliance was their best chance to survive. One evening, while reviewing battle plans, Alara received an urgent report. Sensors had detected multiple ships moving swiftly toward their position. The Dark Watchers from before had returned, and this time, they were not silent observers. The crews scrambled to stations, hearts pounding as alarms rang out. The humans prepared weapons with calm efficiency, while the Varelians activated shields and coordinated fleet formations. The attackers were fast and ruthless, their ships striking with deadly precision, testing every defense the Varelians and humans had prepared. In the chaos, the humans' unorthodox tactics caught the enemy off guard. Rapid flanking maneuvers, daring boarding attempts, and unexpected diversions sowed confusion among the attackers. The Varelians, inspired by their allies, fought with renewed courage, using their advanced technology to support the humans' bold strikes. The battle raged across the dark void, bright flashes of energy and the roar of engines breaking the silence that had once felt so suffocating. In the midst of the fight, Alara saw the humans' true strength, not just their weapons or skills, but their will to protect each other and keep fighting, no matter the cost. When the last enemy ship retreated, both crews breathed a heavy sigh, knowing this was only the beginning of a long war. The humans' way was harsh and unpredictable, but it gave the Varelians something they had lost: hope and the courage to fight for their future. As the damaged ships drifted toward safety, Alara looked out at the stars, feeling a new resolve. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but together, Varelians and humans, they might just change its course. The human way was not perfect, but it was real, raw, and alive. And in the silent void, that was exactly what they needed. The victory over the attackers brought relief, but it also stirred old fears and hidden memories that neither the Varelians nor the humans were ready to face. As the crews worked tirelessly to repair their damaged ships, whispers spread among the ranks about strange transmissions intercepted during the battle, encrypted signals that suggested the enemy was not just a mindless force, but part of a much larger, older threat lurking in the depths of the galaxy, a shadowy presence with roots that tangled deep into both species' histories. Captain Alara spent sleepless nights studying the data, peeling back layers of coded messages that hinted at forgotten wars and betrayals long buried by time. The humans, too, grew restless as stories of ancient enemies and lost alliances resurfaced, their commanders recalling warnings passed down through generations about dark powers that had once nearly destroyed their civilization. The uneasy alliance between the Varelians and humans faced its first true test, not in the heat of battle, but in the secrets that threatened to tear them apart. A chance discovery changed everything. In a hidden storage bay, an old human relic, HFY battered data, crystal salvaged from a ruined world, revealed shocking information about the enemy's origins, a history intertwined with the collapse of a powerful galactic federation that had once included both humans and Varelians. The crystal spoke of betrayal from within, of factions that had turned on each other for power, and of a mysterious force known only as the Veil, which had manipulated events from the shadows to bring chaos and destruction. As Ilara and the human commanders pieced together the puzzle, they realized the attackers were agents of the Veil, working to seize control of key systems and crush any hope of resistance. The revelation sent a chill through the crews. This was not just a fight for survival, but a battle against a hidden enemy that thrived on fear and division. Trust, already fragile, began to strain under the weight of suspicion and old grudges. Some Varelians feared the humans might carry hidden motives, while some humans worried the Varelians were too focused on diplomacy and secrecy to face the brutal truth. The atmosphere grew tense as leaders struggled to keep unity, knowing that if they fractured now, the Veil would win without firing a shot. Alara called a meeting deep within the bowels of the ship, gathering key officers from both crews to confront the past and decide their future. She spoke openly about the need for honesty and courage, urging everyone to remember that their survival depended on standing together against a common enemy. The humans shared their own painful stories of loss and betrayal, admitting their fears but also their fierce will to fight for a new beginning. Slowly, a fragile bond formed through shared pain and hope, but the shadows of the past still lingered, waiting to test their resolve. Meanwhile, mysterious incidents began to unsettle the ships. Systems flickered without cause. Strange figures appeared briefly on security cameras, and untraceable whispers echoed through the corridors at night. Some crew members reported dreams, filled with dark shapes and distant voices calling them toward unknown dangers. The psychological toll was mounting, and Alara worried that the Veil was using fear to weaken them from within. To counter this, the humans suggested a risky plan. They would send out a small team, skilled in stealth and psychological warfare, to trace the source of the strange signals and confront the Veil's agents head-on. The Varelians hesitated but agreed, understanding that waiting meant doom. The team, a mix of human and Varelian specialists, prepared for the mission with grim determination, knowing they might never return. As they ventured into the heart of the uncharted system, the darkness seemed to close in, every sensor reading, and shadow-raising alarms. The team discovered an abandoned station, long hidden and cloaked by advanced technology that distorted their scans. Inside, they found evidence of the Veil's manipulations, altered records, mind control devices, and propaganda designed to sow discord across the galaxy. The deeper they explored, the more they realized the Veil's reach was vast, infecting even some of the allies they had once trusted. A sudden attack from hidden defenders forced the team into a desperate fight, testing their skills and the fragile trust between them. Against all odds, they managed to escape with critical information that could expose the Veil's plans, but at great cost. Their communications were jammed, and help was days away. Back on the ships, Alara waited anxiously, the weight of command, heavier than ever. The past had come alive, threatening to destroy everything they had built. Yet, the alliance held, strengthened by shared sacrifice and a growing belief that together they could face any darkness. As the team returned, battered but alive, they brought not only data, but a renewed sense of purpose. A call to rise above fear and division and fight for a galaxy where silence would no longer mean abandonment. The shadows from the past had emerged, but so had the courage to face them. And in the depths of space, where hope seemed fragile and fleeting, the Varelians and humans prepared to stand side by side, ready to defy the darkness and reclaim their place in the stars. The information the team brought back was like a spark in the dark, lighting a path forward when all seemed lost. Yet the weight of what they discovered pressed heavily on everyone's minds as Captain Alara and the human commanders gathered in the ship's war room to plot their next move. The data showed that the Veil was far more powerful and deeply entrenched than anyone had guessed, controlling fleets, planets, and even entire governments through fear, lies, and unseen manipulation. But the same data also revealed a weakness: HFY Central Command Hub hidden in a remote system, poorly guarded because the Veil believed no one could find it. The Alliance realized this was their chance to strike a decisive blow, but the risks were enormous. To reach the hub, they would have to navigate through hostile territory, facing ambushes and traps designed to break the spirits of even the bravest crews. The humans pushed for swift action, arguing that hesitation would only allow the Veil to tighten its grip and destroy any hope for freedom. The Varelians, cautious yet inspired by human courage, agreed to the plan, and a fleet was quickly assembled from their combined forces. As the ships prepared to leave the safety of their hidden base, tensions ran high. Some feared the mission was a suicide run, while others believed it was their only chance to reclaim their future. Alara felt the heavy burden of command pressing on her like never before. She walked among her crews, offering words of encouragement and listening to their fears, knowing that their unity would be tested in the coming battle. The journey to the command hub was fraught with danger. The fleet moved through asteroid fields and nebula clouds, constantly shadowed by enemy scouts that vanished before they could be fully engaged. The crews worked tirelessly, repairing damage from sudden attacks and adapting to the enemy's unpredictable tactics. The humans' guerrilla skills and quick thinking proved invaluable, leading daring strikes to disrupt enemy supply lines and buying precious time for the Varelian engineers to strengthen their defenses. As the fleet neared the target system, an uneasy silence fell. Sensors detected the faintest signals of traps and mines hidden within the asteroid belt that guarded the command hub, and the threat of ambush loomed large. The crews prepared for a fight unlike any they had faced before, knowing that failure would mean not only death, but the crushing of hope for countless worlds. The attack began with sudden ferocity. Enemy ships swarmed like shadows, striking from all sides, testing the Alliance's defenses with relentless waves of fire and destruction. The humans and Varelians fought side by side, their tactics merging into a seamless dance of offense and defense, each learning from the other's strengths. The battle raged across the void, bright blasts lighting up the darkness, engines roaring, and alarms screaming. In the midst of the chaos, Alara coordinated with the human commander to lead a strike team directly to the heart of the command hub, a heavily fortified station surrounded by debris and shielded by powerful energy fields. The team faced fierce resistance as they boarded the station, moving through dark corridors filled with traps and automated defenses designed to kill intruders. The humans' quick reflexes and street-smart instincts kept the group alive, while the Varelians' advanced technology helped them disable security systems and avoid detection. Deep inside the station, they found the core of the Veil's control network, a massive supercomputer pulsing with dark energy, feeding commands to fleets and agents across the galaxy. Destroying it would cripple the Veil's power and give the Alliance a chance to rally others to their cause. But as they prepared to plant charges, the station's commander appeared, a cold and ruthless figure who revealed more about the Veil's plans, a campaign to extinguish all resistance and remake the galaxy in its image, erasing entire cultures and histories. The commander offered a cruel choice: surrender and join the Veil or be destroyed. The strike team refused, igniting a fierce firefight that pushed their skills and courage to the limit. The humans fought with a fierce passion, their defiance inspiring the Varelians to press forward despite overwhelming odds. When the charges exploded, the station shook violently, alarms blaring as systems failed one by one. The team raced to escape before the station collapsed into the void. Outside, the fleet engaged in one last desperate battle, using every weapon and tactic to hold back enemy reinforcements and cover the retreat. The victory was hard won and came at a high cost. Ships were lost, and many brave souls never returned. But the destruction of the command hub sent shockwaves through the Veil's network, fracturing its control and inspiring uprisings on several worlds once thought lost. The Alliance, battered but unbroken, began to grow stronger as word spread of their success, and the human way of fearless resistance became a symbol of hope. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars that seemed a little brighter now. She knew the war was far from over, but the tide had turned. The shadows that had once threatened to consume them were retreating, and together Varelians and humans had proven that even in the darkest void, light could be found. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it was theirs to shape. The destruction of the Veil's command hub sent ripples through the galaxy, awakening hope in worlds long silenced by fear and oppression. Yet as the alliance of Varelians and humans celebrated their hard-fought victory, they knew that the war was far from over. The Veil's reach was vast, and its followers, though shaken, still held strong positions across key star systems, ready to strike back with ruthless force. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars as the fleet prepared to move into new territories where rebellion flickered like a candle in the dark. The human commanders worked alongside her, their experience of past struggles invaluable in rallying allies and organizing resistance movements scattered across the galaxy. They knew that the road ahead would be dangerous and uncertain, with enemies lurking not just in space but within the hearts of those who doubted or feared change. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance expanded rapidly. Freed worlds sent ships, fighters, and supplies to join the growing fleet, inspired by the example of unity between the Varelians and humans. Each new member brought unique skills and cultures, blending ancient wisdom with modern grit in a way that surprised even the most seasoned leaders. Still, distrust lingered in some corners. Old rivalries and scars from the past threatened to unravel the fragile peace they had fought so hard to build. Alara made it her mission to remind everyone that the galaxy's future depended on embracing differences rather than letting them divide. Training camps became centers not just for military drills but for cultural exchange and learning, where humans taught Varelians to take risks and adapt quickly, while the Varelians shared their knowledge of strategy and technology. The crews grew closer. Friendships blossomed, and a new sense of family formed among those who once saw each other as strangers or even enemies. Yet the shadow of the Veil remained, striking with sudden attacks on vulnerable outposts and spreading fear through propaganda that sought to undo all progress. Alara and the human commanders knew that their greatest weapon was not just firepower, but the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to bow to darkness. One day, intelligence revealed a critical target, a massive fortress planet serving as the heart of the Veils. Remaining power, heavily fortified and guarded by fleets determined to crush any rebellion. The Alliance prepared for a final, decisive battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. As the fleet approached the fortress, tension tightened like a rope around everyone's hearts. The humans used their guerrilla tactics to slip past enemy patrols, sabotaging defenses and confusing the enemy, while the Varelians marshaled their advanced technology and fleet formations to hold the enemy at bay. The battle was fierce and unrelenting, with explosions lighting up the void and screams echoing through the ship's corridors. Alara led from the front, inspiring her crews to push beyond fear and exhaustion. In the heart of the fortress, the strike team infiltrated the main control center, facing deadly traps and relentless guards. They moved as one, their trust in each other unshakable, overcoming every obstacle with a mix of human cunning and Varelian precision. When they finally reached the core, they found the source of the Veil's dark power, a mysterious device, pulsing with energy that seemed to drain hope itself. With no hesitation, they destroyed it, sending a shockwave that disabled the fortress's defenses and threw the enemy into chaos. The fleet seized the moment, overwhelming the defenders and taking control of the planet. As the last enemy ships fled or surrendered, a new feeling swept through the Alliance: relief, joy, and the fragile first breath of peace. But Alara knew the true work was only beginning. They had won the battle, but the galaxy was still broken, scarred by years of war and mistrust. She called a gathering of leaders and representatives from all the freed worlds to discuss how to build a future where no one would be abandoned or forgotten. The conversations were difficult and sometimes painful, but they were necessary. Slowly, a vision emerged, a galaxy united not by fear or control, but by respect, cooperation, and shared dreams. The humans and Varelians took the lead in forming new alliances, rebuilding shattered communities, and creating councils where all voices could be heard. Together, they laid the foundation for a new order, one that valued life and freedom above all else. As the new dawn rose over the galaxy, Alara stood on the bridge once more, watching the stars that no longer seemed cold and distant but full of promise. Beside her, the human commanders smiled, knowing that their unexpected alliance had changed everything. They had faced the darkest shadows and refused to give in, proving that even the smallest spark of hope could ignite a fire strong enough to light the way for millions. The galaxy was still vast and full of unknown dangers, but now it was also a place where courage, friendship, and unity could thrive. And in that truth, they found strength beyond any weapon or technology. Together, they would write the next chapter of their story, a story of survival, of rising from the ashes, and of a new dawn for the galaxy.